Okay, thank you, Vinay. So, good afternoon, respected speaker, sir, Dr. Devashish Mazumdar, respected principal, ma'am, Dr. Mousumi Singh Sengupta, Dr. Ashit Mondol, in charge, Department of Commerce, other faculty members of our college, my beloved students, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to inform you that the Department of Economics has once again arranged today's invited lecture session. This is the first lecture session of special lecture series in 2K21. Today's topic is a guideline on microeconomics. On behalf of the department, I take the opportunity to convey my sincere thanks to today's speaker, sir, Dr. Devashish Mazumdar, for accepting our invitation. This program has been arranged mainly for our students. In recent past also, the department arranged so many invited lecture sessions, and the department jointly organized ICSSS-sponsored national seminar in January 2020. In the same year, the department organized one national webinar, and with other two departments of the college, the Department of Economics organized international webinar in the same year. It's true that we have been passing through a very unusual time since the last year, but pandemic, social distancing, and unusual situation have been failed to stop us from constant academic enhancement and enrichment through the uninterrupted arrangement of such academic programs using online platform. And this has become possible due to constant support and motivation from the college authority, including our very dynamic principal, madam. Without further delay, may I now request our principal, madam, to deliver today's welcome speech. Over to madam. Hello, am I audible?
Sorry, my microphone was off. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you, Professor Gupta, for your introduction. And good afternoon and welcome everyone. I offer my warm and hearty welcome to our honorable speaker, Dr. Debashis Mazumdar, Professor and Head, Department of Economics, the Heritage College, Kolkata, to the session of Special Lecture Series 2021, which is organized by the Department of Economics of our college. I welcome all other faculty members from different departments and also my dear students. See, as Niloy has already mentioned that we are passing through a very hard time, and since the college closure for last 15 months, we have been compelled to shift our education from face-to-face or physical mode to online mode. Basically, it's a new method. Although the students have already become adapted to this new process of learning, since there might, but definitely there might be some gap in understanding the subject or topic in detail. That, and in some of the cases what we find that it's very difficult to get immediate feedback from the students even after the class is over, because no one can see, I mean the teachers can also cannot see the student face. That is usual practice by at least have a look, or this just whenever it's possible to see, just seeing the faces of the students, teachers can understand whether they have been able to understand the subject or not. It's really very difficult. Anyway, because we don't have any other option now. Also our teachers they are putting a lot of effort, and they are trying their level best to make them learn, and also to prepare them, help them for definitely for preparation of forthcoming examination, because we have already had 2 examination through online mode, and now the students they have their even semester examinations, both internal as well as final semester in examinations. But it's always very nice to to arrange this kind of additional lecture session for the students' benefit. And this time, Department of Economics has come up with the lecture series for the students across the departments of the college. Basically, for the students who are who are having their economics as their course subject as well as generic elective. I appreciate the initiative of the department and express my thankfulness to the convener, Professor Niloy Gupta, joint convener Shoptorshi, and other faculty members, and for giving the technical support, Binoy, Dipayan, and Shomo, Professor Shomoto Nodikari. And also I'm thankful to our today's speaker, Sir Dr. Debashis Mazumdar, once again for being with us. I'm really thankful to him that he's always busy, but still he has given out time to deliver lecture for our students. I'm also thankful to all the staff, non-teaching staff of this institution for their cooperation. Thank you, and once again, welcome to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very motivational speech. So without further delay, there is no need to introduce sir because everyone knows sir very well. But as a formality, I just want to say that Dr. Devashish Mazumdar is professor and head in the Department of Economics, the Heritage College. He was earlier an associate professor in Bongobashi College. He also served as a faculty and counselor in PG department of several other higher educational institutions in Kolkata. He completed his MPhil in 1984 and completed his PhD from Rabindra Bharati University in the year of 2000. His research interest areas are open economy, macroeconomics, development economics, etc. He has large number of publications. He has published around 60 articles in many reputed national, international journals as well as in many edited volumes. He wrote 14 textbooks on economics at HS and ISC level. Along with, he also wrote around 18 textbooks on managerial economics, financial market, and financial management at UG level for CU and for other universities. Apart from that, he also acted as guide or co-guide to MPhil and PhD students. His large and immense contributions in the field have made a knowledge bank before the students. So it's a big opportunity where our students can directly interact with Dr. Mazumdar. So I do hope that our students will be highly benefited from today's valuable lecture session. And once again, thank you very much, sir, for accepting my invitation. Thank you, everyone. Over to Dr. Devashish Mazumdar.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Respected Professor Mousumi Singh, Principal, THK Jain College. Respected Professor Niloy Gupta, HOD Economics Department. The student conveners, especially Shoptorshi, my beloved students who are present today. It is really a great honor to be invited in this special lecture series organized or arranged by the Department of Economics, THK Jain College today. First of all, what attracted me most that when I first joined through online, this is my first experience with THK Jain College. I have seen the organizational strength of this college, particularly under the leadership of the principal, is very strong, quite different, unique in the sense that my lifetime experience, I have given say lectures in many colleges and universities and in the online mode. And when I joined, principal or head of the institution is not present there. There is a hodgepodge in the organizational behavior. Okay, here I find something quite different. So this is, say, a positive sign of a good college, a good institution. So it is really, I appreciate the head of the institution for this. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, for example, when I stepped into a new house, if the say owner of that house is not present, I feel na हिंदी में कहते हैं कि हिचकिचाते हैं वो हम so this is quite natural for any newcomer, na? So I feel very happy to be with you and since my this video is creating some problems, so I will keep this video off. for some time when I start my lecture, and I this prepared my lecture keeping in view the needs requirements of particularly the BCom students. Okay, as I have been informed, they were particularly semester 4 students. Okay, it is with respect to their Microeconomics 2 syllabus, module 1, semester 4. So without any further delay, I would just take your permission to just start my lecture.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. So, do you
Okay.
want to present your screen? Do you
Yes,
want
yes,
to present your
yes,
screen? Okay, sir.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, Shaptarshi, you help, sir.
Okay, madam.
So, Shaptarshi, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Ekdam. Perfectly
Okay,
okay.
okay, fine. So today's lectures in this lecture session, my topic is Guideline on Microeconomics, especially based on BSc semester BCom semester 4, Micro 2, Module 1, CBCS syllabus. I first start with the monopoly market. Now my objective is to give you some hint regarding some spatial areas from where you can expect the questions in your final. And since all of you know that you have to answer in multiple choice type questions, so the knowledge should be much in depth, because it is objective type. You must have you can't get anything under the sky. The questions may be anything, okay, from anywhere, but within the syllabus, of course. But you must have a proper idea, proper knowledge about the subject. So I first start with the monopoly market. Okay, now I first start with the basic features that we all know. And normally when you talk about the monopoly, mono means one, poly means seller. So monopoly means single seller in this market and selling a particular product for which there is no close substitute in the market. So if there is no near substitute or remote substitute, we call it pure monopoly. Okay, for example, Indian Railway is a pure monopolist in the state monopoly. Okay, we call it a state monopoly in India, providing railway transport service. Though there is no near substitute of railway transport, there is remote substitute, road transport. But pure monopoly means a situation where you will not find neither any close substitute nor any remote substitute. This is the basic difference between the pure monopoly and the monopoly. Now, monopolist normally it satisfies the market demand, and hence that it faces the demand schedule in the market, aggregate demand schedule of the market. And we know that the aggregate demand schedule talks about that negative relationship, okay, between the price and the quantity demanded. So in the market, if you have a normal negatively sloped demand curve, then the monopolist who has to serve the whole market, supposed to serve the whole market, faces that market aggregate demand curve. So your multiple choice type question may be say, what is the shape of the demand curve faced by the monopoly firm? Is it horizontal, upward sloping, downward sloping, vertical? Your answer will be negatively sloped, and it faces the aggregate market demand. So everything you must know. Now, aggregate market demand, it has some spatial feature or characteristics. That means it is negatively sloped, means if you want to sell more, then you have to reduce the price. Okay, sometimes it appears that if you have a monopoly power, then you can charge any price, you can fix any quantity, but that is not that according to this theoretical say jargon, or according to the microeconomic theory, neoclassical theory. You will find that when the monopolist fixes the profit maximizing level of output or profit maximizing price, either he first determines the price and then output, or he first determines the output and then price. This is why this is because this is so. Your explanation is in this term. This is because when you consider the demand function, either it is a Marshallian type of demand function or a Walras type of demand function. In case of Marshallian type of demand function, price is a function of quantity. But in case of Walras, the function is quantity is a function of price, but a quantity demanded is a function of price. That is Walrasian type of demand function. Okay, so when you consider demand function, either it is P is a function of Q, Marshallian type, or Walras type, Q is a function of P. So when you maximize your profit then equilibrium or profit maximizing price, if you fix the price, then automatically quantity will be determined. And if you fix the quantity, then automatically price will be determined from the demand function. But simultaneously, it is not true. So monopolist, it has to say keeping its objective in view. That means it wants to maximize the profit. And we know the profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost. So you must have an idea regarding the revenue functions of the monopoly firm. Now, we know that the demand function is actually the average revenue function. Why? Because demand function shows the relation between average price and quantity. What is average price? It is nothing but average revenue. What is average revenue? Total revenue divided by total quantity. What is total revenue? Price into quantity. So you are dividing price into quantity by quantity, so you get price. So average revenue means average price. So any function which shows the relation between price and quantity also shows the relation between average revenue and quantity. So demand curve is also the average revenue curve. So please keep in your mind not to give wrong answer, that demand curve is also the average revenue schedule of the firm. So here the monopolist, we assume that faces a linear means downward sloping straight line demand curve, which is also average revenue curve. And then you must keep in your mind the relationship between the marginal revenue function and the average revenue function of the monopoly firm. You know that marginal revenue is the rate of change of revenue, total revenue, due to a small change in the sales of the firm. And when you draw the linear demand curve, then the corresponding marginal revenue curve is also linear, but the slope, there is a relationship, particular relationship between the slope of the demand curve and the slope of the MR curve. Normally, we can prove that the slope, absolute slope of the MR curve will be twice that of the average revenue curve or the demand curve. Or alternatively speaking, the slope, absolute slope of the average revenue schedule will be half of the absolute slope of the marginal revenue curve. So this is also a very important multiple choice type question. That is the relationship between the slopes of the average revenue and marginal revenue schedules of the monopoly firm. So I have given the proof. You can, I shall send you this particular document to you so that you can study it. You can see it. Either you can see it from the book. In the book there is a proof. Okay, the proof is very easy. For example, when you determine the total revenue, either you can multiply P into Q. So here P is P naught, Q is Q naught. So what is the total revenue? The area of the this rectangle O P naught A Q naught. That is your total revenue. Total revenue can also be measured by the summation of the marginal revenue. So total revenue is O M C Q naught. That is also your total revenue. So these two areas, this rectangle and this area OMCQ naught, that is also the total revenue. These two areas will be equal. Hence, the common area is OP naught BCQ naught. That is the common area. Therefore, these two triangles, MP naught B and ABC, they must be equal. And they are similar triangles, so they are congruent. Since they are congruent, the base of the triangle MP naught B and the base of the triangle ABC, they will equal. That means P naught B will be equal to AB. So P naught B and AB, if they are equal, then P naught B will be twice PA. Now, calculate now the slope of the average revenue curve and the slope of the marginal revenue curve at a particular price. If your price is P naught, okay, then what is the slope of the demand curve or the average revenue curve? Height divided by base. So slope of the M P naught by P naught A, and slope of the marginal revenue curve at price P naught will be M P naught by P naught B, height divided by base. Okay, so since you have already proved that your P naught A is twice P naught B, so automatically it is proved that the slope of the demand curve or average revenue curve will be half of the slope of the marginal revenue curve. In this way, I have written it, but it is very easy to prove. Now, also, there is an important relationship between the marginal revenue, price, and elasticity, price elasticity of demand. They're very, very important. What is that relationship? The relationship is that marginal revenue of the monopolist will be equal to the average revenue multiplied by 1 minus 1 upon price elasticity of demand. This is a very important relationship. And on the basis of this relationship, you can find out some of the important production decisions taken by the monopoly firm. Okay. This average revenue and price, they are equal, so I have written MR equals to P into 1 minus 1 upon E. And that can also be proved from this diagram also. From this diagram, it can be proved. I have given you the write-up. You can just find it out. So I am not wasting my time to just explaining how do you prove it, but the result is very important from the viewpoint of your multiple choice type question. That is, what is the relationship between marginal revenue, price, and price elasticity? Please see your optional or multiple choice type options. Maybe they may give MR equals to TR into 1 minus 1 upon E, or MR equals to TR into 1 upon E minus 1. In this way, they will confuse you, but you must know the correct answer to give the correct. So you must have the proper knowledge to give the correct answer. Now, coming to the profit maximizing rule. Okay, this is very important. Now, there are two basic conditions that you know. That basic objective of the monopoly firm is to maximize profit. Always it tries to equate marginal revenue and marginal cost, number one. And it fixes say profit maximizing output in such a way that the rate of change of marginal cost must be more than rate of change of marginal revenue. Okay, so here I have given some say diagrams. So this diagram, the left panel, figure 2, indicates that if you consider this marginal revenue curve and this U-shaped marginal cost curve, okay, normally what you have learned in your perfect competition, you have learned that in the perfect competition also at equilibrium MC and P, they are equal. That is MR. In the perfectly competitive market, price and marginal revenue, they are equal. So P equals to MC means P equals to MR. So there also the first order condition or the necessary condition is equity between or equality between marginal cost and marginal revenue, and the rate of change of marginal cost must be more. That is, marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue from below. That you have learned from your HS level also. But here you must keep in your mind that in the monopoly market, marginal cost and marginal revenue, their equity or equality is the first order or necessary condition for profit maximization. But the second order condition is rate of change of marginal cost should be greater than rate of change of marginal revenue. Obviously, that doesn't mean that marginal cost will always cut the marginal revenue from below. That I have shown here. In the left panel, please see at point A and at point E, the marginal cost curve has cut the this marginal revenue schedule. So your profit maximizing output can be either Q0 or Q2. But you know, the second order condition or the sufficient condition for profit maximization has to be fulfilled. That means if you increase the output and if you observe that your marginal cost is more than marginal revenue, then only you must understand that that is your say equilibrium point. Now here, if you consider A as equilibrium point, then if you increase your output beyond Q0, what you observe? You observe that your marginal cost is less than marginal revenue. Please see. For example, at Q1 level of output, your marginal revenue is BQ1, but your marginal cost is less. So if your cost is less, but revenue is more at the margin, then what will be your objective? Your objective will be to sell more. So the firm will sell more until it reaches at Q2, where it finds its marginal cost and marginal revenue, they are equal. But now if it say increases output beyond Q0, then what will be the result? Its marginal cost will be higher than marginal revenue, and even the marginal cost may be positive and the marginal revenue may be negative. So it will stop here. So the equilibrium level of output will be Q2, where both the conditions are satisfied. But in figure 2a, I have shown that even if the marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue from above, please see, it is cutting from above. Here it is cutting from below. Whether it cuts from below or cuts from above doesn't matter in case of monopoly. Okay, but only thing which does matter is whether if you cross say beyond this equilibrium level of output, whether your marginal cost is rising or not, it is more or not, it is more than the marginal revenue or not. So that happens here. So the marginal cost schedule may even cut the marginal revenue from above also. Now coming to the short-run equilibrium. Everywhere you are concerned with short-run equilibrium. In this market also, I have shown the short-run equilibrium. There are two possibilities. I have shown here in my diagram that if at the equilibrium, for example, here the marginal cost schedule cuts the marginal revenue schedule at point E. Okay, So the equilibrium price and the average cost schedule is there. And you must remember that when you draw the marginal cost curve and the average cost curve, marginal cost must cut the average cost through its minimum point. So here average cost is OB, price is OP per unit. Okay, so total revenue is more than total cost. So there is excess profit here, short-run excess profit. But here in the right panel, what you observe that your average cost is more than your average price. So it is not true that the monopoly firm will always earn excess profit. It is not true. For example, because of the situations beyond control, which is exogenous in nature. For example, the firm has to import crude oil, or the firm produces some commodities using the factory inputs which require crude oil, but the price of crude oil rises in the international market, over which the firm has no control. In that case, during short run, because of that shock in terms of cost hike, there may be a short run loss. But normally a monopoly firm adjusts its factory size in such a way that or undertakes research and development in such a way that in the long run it earns excess profit. So this is all about the short run profit of the firm. But now coming to the long run equilibrium situation, here I have drawn 3 diagrams. In the long run, we are concerned with long run average cost and long run marginal cost, LSC and LMC, instead of short run, where we denote it by SSC. SSC means short run average cost and short run marginal cost. Here, in this case, for example, the equilibrium point is E, where LMC, long run marginal cost, cuts the marginal revenue at point E. This is the equilibrium output. First determine equilibrium output Q0, and then you determine the price according to the demand curve, and you get the revenue. And what happens, what is special here, is that at equilibrium, LSC, long run average cost, is at its minimum. And we know that if long run average cost is at its minimum, then the plant size, the factory size, will be optimal. So this is called long run equilibrium with optimal size of the factory. Okay, so this is one possibility of long run equilibrium of a monopoly firm. So in the long run equilibrium, the monopoly firm may have excess profit even with least average cost. But you know, in the perfect competition, what happens? In the long run equilibrium, there is only normal profit. Here also at equilibrium output, average cost long run is minimum. Here also it is minimum, but there is excess profit. This is the basic difference between the competitive market and monopoly market. In the monopoly market, output is low, price is higher. But in the competitive market, price is lower, output is higher. Here, in the second panel, I have shown another diagram where equilibrium point is E, where LMC cuts MR at point E. But what do you observe? At that equilibrium level of output, your average cost is C0. But corresponding to C0, you are at point F on the LSE. But that point F is not the minimum point. Optimal factory size, optimum plant size occurs only at the minimum point of the average cost, long run average cost curve. But here we call it long run equilibrium of monopoly firm under suboptimal plant size. And in the third panel, we have drawn another diagram I have drawn where I have shown that at equilibrium level of output, okay, the average cost is C0. But if you count here point F, consider point F on the LSE, this is to the right of the minimum point. That is, it is called over optimal farm size. So farm size may be optimal, suboptimal, or over optimal. Suboptimal or over optimal. So you cannot guarantee that whether in the long run the monopoly farm can have optimal farm size. It is very important. Now, monopoly power can arise because of several sources that you are aware of. This is there in your textbook, but still for just recapitulation, you can just consider these cases that the farm may have some ownership of strategic raw material which other farms do not, some of the patent right or trade license or import license that will give it extra power, market power, exclusive knowledge of some technology or limited size of the market, okay, where it is possible for the farm to easily increase the price, or the tariff barrier between countries, so that when monopoly farm imports something, it can sell it at a higher price in India. But for any particular individual it is not possible to travel that long distance and purchase it from any foreign country for that particular, as I say, small amount of commodity. That is not prudent on the part of an individual consumer. So because of tariff barrier between countries, it is also possible for the monopoly firm to charge higher in domestic country. Then limit pricing policy. Limit pricing policy means when the firm want to capture the market, okay, it can reduce deliberately, it can reduce the price and want to sell more. For example, you may be remembering the case of that Reliance Jio, when it was launched first. You know better than me that it was offered at a very low price now to capture the market. That is called limit pricing. So at that very low price, now other firms cannot enter because that is not the remunerative price for other firms. So why that firm follows that policy? Ultimately to capture the market. So now what you now observe, now the price is a bit higher. Okay, that's the same service is providing by Jio Net, but its initial offer price and the present price is quite different. Now, how can you measure the monopoly power? There is a Lerner's index. Okay, this is the index to which you can measure the monopoly power of a firm. This is Lerner's index. So L is M P minus MC by P. Price, average price minus, that is the difference between the price and marginal cost as a proportion of the price. If this distance increases, the monopoly power increases. In case of perfectly competitive market, you know, at equilibrium, price and marginal cost, they are equal. So under perfect competition, monopoly power is zero. But in the monopoly market, you know, the equilibrium price is greater than marginal cost. Higher the price and greater the distance between price and marginal cost, higher will be the monopoly power. That is the logic. That is the say implication. Now you can prove that this monopoly power actually depends on price elasticity of demand. How you can prove it? You can show that at equilibrium, marginal cost and marginal revenue, they are equal. So instead of marginal cost, you can put here marginal revenue, P minus MR. And just a few minutes back, I have shown you that there is a relationship between MR, P, and elasticity. So instead of MR, you can write it here, P minus MR. So instead of MR, you can write P into 1 minus 1 upon P. So after simplification, you will get 1 upon P, 1 by price elasticity of demand. So if this value, the magnitude of price elasticity is falling, that means as the price elasticity is more and more inelastic, the market power, monopoly power will rise. So that is the relationship. So your multiple choice type question that may be asked on this basis. That is, monopoly power depends on this 1 upon P, 1 upon E, or the formula. They can give you the formula. They can give you, say, a wrong formula, and you have to choose the correct answer. So this is the correct formula, and it actually depends on price elasticity of demand. Okay, more inelastic the demand, more will be the monopoly power. That is the relationship. Now this is very important from the viewpoint of the decision of a firm, monopoly firm, on the basis of price elasticity of demand, say profit maximizing output decision. Normally it is shown that if you consider a linear demand curve or average revenue curve, you know that at the midpoint, okay, when you calculate the point elasticity on any linear demand curve, you must be knowing that at midpoint elasticity is 1, okay, above it is greater than 1, below it is less than 1, and at the lower corner it is 0, in the upper corner it is infinite. So there are say price elasticity will be different at different points on a linear demand curve, that we know. But when elasticity is 1, it means that logically it means that when elasticity is unit, your total revenue will be maximum. Okay, total revenue maximum means your marginal revenue is 0. So when elasticity 1, total revenue maximum, what does it mean? That when elasticity is 1, your percentage change in demand and percentage change in price is equal. Okay, so if you change your price by 10%, your demand is also changed by 10%. So your total revenue remains unchanged. In that case, your demand curve is a rectangular. Normally, your demand curve is a rectangular hyperbola if you consider unit price elasticity along all the points of the curve. So if you consider a rectangular hyperbola demand curve, then you must be knowing that for any particular price, your total revenue P into Q will be equal. So here it is shown in this way. If you consider the marginal revenue schedule and the elasticity, you will find that at elasticity equals to 1, the corresponding marginal revenue will be 0. So if the monopolist produces any output Q1, its marginal revenue is 0. If it produces more, then its marginal revenue is negative, corresponding to which elasticity is less than 1. So normally the monopolist will take production decision in such a way that its marginal revenue is positive. The corresponding elasticity is greater than 1. Okay. There is always a confusion. Somebody sometimes it appears to our mind that, sir, you have said that when there is a monopoly in the market, then the price elasticity of demand is inelastic. Okay, normally because of low substitute. But here you observe, here the theory says that the monopolist must fix the output at such a level where elasticity is elastic, greater than 1. How we can sorry, a minute, 1 minute please. Six four six six 6466. Sorry for the interruption. Now here what is important in the sense that when you consider the profit maximizing level of output, okay, from the viewpoint of any monopoly firm, then and you consider the linear demand curve. It is all because of the theoretical jargon. When you consider the linear demand curve, then at any particular point on the linear demand curve, okay, you are considering that elasticity. That elasticity is greater than 1. It may be greater than 1. But as a whole, for example, when you consider the whole this demand schedule, you will find that it is not flatter, it is steeper. That means as a whole in the market, the demand is inelastic, relatively inelastic. But from the theoretical point of view, when you consider the linear demand curve, your answer will be the marginal. The monopolist will set the profit maximizing output corresponding to which E must be greater than 1, not less than 1. Because if it is less than 1, considering the linear demand curve, its marginal revenue will be negative. But its marginal cost is always positive. Here I have not drawn the marginal cost curve. Okay, if I draw the marginal cost curve, for example, if I draw it now, for example, for you, say this is the marginal cost curve. Okay, now if this is the marginal cost curve, then it is positive. Its marginal cost curve is positive, so it must produce output level Q0. Okay, why? Because its marginal cost is positive, so its marginal revenue must also be positive. It should not produce Q1 level of output, corresponding to which elasticity is 1 and corresponding to which marginal revenue is 0. Okay, so please keep in your mind, this is very, very important, very, very important for your final exam, that a monopolist must produce a profit maximizing level of output corresponding to which price elasticity is greater than 1. The logic behind it is that it has to cover its positive marginal cost, and its marginal revenue must also be positive. So this is the logic. Now, welfare cost of monopoly. This is also included in the syllabus. Now, what is welfare cost of monopoly? For understanding this welfare cost, you must understand the relation between competitive market and the monopoly market. So using a single diagram, here I have shown that how using a single diagram you can show the relation between the competitive market and the monopoly market. In the competitive market, this is the demand curve. Average revenue curve is the market demand curve. Okay, and this marginal cost curve of the monopoly firm can be considered as the supply curve in the competitive market, because you know that in the competitive market, this short-run marginal cost and the aggregate, the summation of those short-run marginal cost curve can be considered as the supply curve. So in the market, competitive market, the equilibrium point may be considered as G. G means where this supply curve, market supply curve, that means the MC schedule, cuts the demand schedule, that is the AR schedule. So in the competitive market, the price will be PC, competitive price, and the output will be QC, competitive output. But as you consider the monopoly market, okay, what is the equilibrium output? Where marginal cost and marginal revenue intersects, that is at point E. So equilibrium output under monopoly market is QM, and the price is determined through the this demand schedule. So the price in the monopoly market will be PM. So what do you observe? You observe that in comparison with the competitive market, the monopoly price is higher than the competitive price, and monopoly output is less than competitive output. Now, because of this difference, there arises this welfare cost of monopoly. Why? Now, what is welfare? Here, welfare means for the people at large in the society, their welfare depends on the output they can consume. Their utility depends on the consumption. So if you can ensure more output in the market, then you can ensure more utility. So in the competitive market, your output is more, so utility is more, so welfare will be higher. But in the monopoly market, your output supply is lower. Please see. So the consumption from the viewpoint of the consumers, their utility will be lower because they are sacrificing utility because they have to now consume less. Now, please see that in this case, when the price in the monopoly market rises, okay, so you are comparing price rise from PC to PM. Now, if you consider the old price, competitive price PC, now what is consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is measured on the basis of marginal utility minus the price. Marginal utility minus the price. Now we know that the demand curve from the Marshallian point of view, this AR curve, this demand curve, is also called as the marginal utility curve or the marginal benefit curve for the consumer. So the total utility, total benefit derived by the consumer in the competitive market was this triangle, consumer surplus. PC, if you give this a point here, for example, here, say point B, so PC, B, G, PC, B, G. If this point is B, I'll call it B, we can give it a point. Just give me a bit time, I'm giving you a point so that we can say this point is B. So this point is B, say, for example. So this triangle PCBG is the consumer surplus. But when the price rises from PC to PM, the consumer the consumer surplus declines. Consumer surplus now declines. How much? PC, PM, FG. By this amount, the consumer surplus declines. Similarly, when the producers used to produce QC in the competitive market, the producer surplus was, what is producer surplus? What is producer surplus? Price minus marginal cost. That is called producer surplus. Okay. In case of consumer surplus, marginal utility minus price. What benefit marginal benefit that you are getting and what price that you are ready to pay. The difference is consumer surplus. And what is producer surplus? What price you are getting from the market minus what minimum price you expect. And this marginal cost schedule actually indicates the minimum price expected by the seller. So price minus marginal cost will indicate the producer surplus. So at competitive market, the producer surplus was APCG. That was the producer surplus. But now, okay, now when you are in monopoly market, then the monopolist supplies QM. The monopolist supplies QM. For that, the producer surplus will be AKE. AKE. Please see, the producer surplus is also falling. Producer surplus, when you measure, you consider only the supply curve. When you measure the consumer surplus, you have to consider only the demand curve. And when you consider the producer surplus, you should not consider any other curve, only the supply curve. So considering the MC curve only, the producer surplus under monopoly will be AKE. So there is a loss in producer surplus by an amount of PCKEG. So when we shift our market structure from competitive market to monopoly market, there is a loss in both consumer surplus and producer surplus. So together there is a loss. But out of that, this area PCMFG, that is consumer surplus loss. But out of that, you please see PCMFJ, that amount is now redistributed to the monopolist because that amount goes to the pocket of the monopolist as revenue. Number one. Number two, again, out of the producer surplus loss, okay, that was the loss, PCKEG. Out of that loss, this area, PCKEJ, again, it goes to the pocket of monopolist because that also includes in its revenue. So out of the total loss, this whole area, PMKEF, goes to the monopolist. It is redistributed to the monopolist as revenue. But the remaining, this part, that FEG, EFG, that triangle, it indicates loss in consumer surplus together with producer surplus. That part of loss of consumer surplus and producer surplus, which are not redistributed to anybody else in the society. So hence it is called as deadweight loss to the society or social welfare cost of monopoly. So this is all about. So what type of question you can expect? You can expect that that deadweight loss or welfare cost of monopoly is determined by loss in producer surplus. Option number B, loss in consumer surplus. Number C, both A and B. Your answer will be both A and B, because this welfare cost of monopoly is measured by the loss in both consumer surplus and producer surplus. Or if the option, if you find in your option, it is determined by, say, there will be so many options, but if there is only one term, deadweight loss, your answer will be deadweight loss. Okay. I have written it. I shall send it to you. Now coming to the discriminating monopoly. Discriminating monopoly means when a monopolist can charge different prices from different groups of buyers. Okay, but there are three particular degrees of price discrimination. Okay, first degree discrimination, second degree price discrimination, and the third degree. Now, what is the meaning of first degree discrimination? Please note that first degree price discrimination means a situation when the monopolist has perfect knowledge about the market demand schedule. At the beginning, I have indicated that a monopolist, okay, it faces the market demand curve. But if it has a perfect knowledge about the market demand curve, what does it mean? It means that it knows that for each quantity, what maximum the buyer is ready to pay. For example, if you go to College Street, there are many bookstalls. No? You need one accountancy book, okay, second hand. Now, if you just step into that shop and first your question is, sir, have you that book in your stock? Immediately the seller will understand that you, Mr. X, you have a high demand for that book. Please do not tell your preference first, because if you express your preference, then the seller will understand your almost your maximum possible price that you are ready to pay. So if any seller has that knowledge that what maximum price that the buyer is ready to pay for any particular quantity, then and he is able to charge that maximum price, that is called first degree price discrimination. So for first degree price discrimination, the monopolist can charge the highest possible price which the buyer is ready to pay, as if they can read your mind. So this is a typical psychological feature of monopoly market. So first degree price discrimination. And what is the result? Result is that under first degree price discrimination, if for each quantity they can charge different prices, then there will be no consumer surplus. So under first degree price discrimination, no consumer surplus will be there for the consumer to enjoy. So your multiple choice type question, say under first degree price discrimination, first option, there will be no consumer surplus. That is the correct answer. Okay, some consumer surplus. Okay, in this way, so you must be ready to give proper answer. Okay, first degree price discrimination. Then there is second degree price discrimination. Second degree price discrimination means block pricing. For each block of commodities, for each range of commodities, they charge different prices. For example, for the first, say, say 10 dozens of college copies, they will charge a price. And if you purchase the next 10 dozens of that particular commodity, they may give you a discount. That is the block pricing. The next block, separate price. If you further increase your purchase, they can even give you more discount. So this is called second degree price discrimination, or it is called a process of block pricing. So your multiple choice type question will be, block pricing is followed by the monopolist under your option: first degree price discrimination, second degree price discrimination, third degree price discrimination, etc. Your answer will be under second degree price discrimination. So under second degree price discrimination, the pricing process is called as the block pricing. But the third degree price discrimination is very important. Third degree means where the monopolist divides the whole market in separately, okay, under different groups of buyers, where different groups of buyers have different price elasticity of demand. One group of buyer may have inelastic demand, while the other group of buyers may have, say, elastic demand. And you know that if the demand is relatively inelastic, if you charge higher price, for example, if you raise your price by 20%, the demand will not fall to that extent. That is inelastic price. So the inelastic demand, so that you can raise your price easily. But if the demand is elastic, okay, then if you raise your price by 5%, demand will fall by 10%. So in that case, you cannot raise your price too much. So if the monopolist can divide the whole market into different groups, separate groups of buyers, and charge different prices according to different price elasticity of demand in different group or say segment of the market, then it is called third degree price discrimination. So this is one multiple choice type question you can expect, that a market, when a market is under third degree price discrimination, a monopolist segregates the market. The option will be, or the correct answer will be, according to the price elasticity of demand. Or for example, the option may be, under third degree price discrimination, the monopolist will charge higher price in the market where the exact answer will be where the price elasticity will be inelastic. If a monopolist will charge lower price in a market, actual answer will be, in the market he will charge lower price where elasticity will be elastic. So you must be very much careful about the correct answer, and your knowledge, your conception, proper conception will give you the advantage of writing the proper or giving the proper option. Now, when is price discrimination possible? Different price elasticity, different price elasticity of demand. Okay, this is number one possibility. Tariff barrier. Okay, there is a tariff barrier I have shown. If geographical distance between the markets is huge, then you can charge higher price in the local market and say lower price in the foreign market. Impossibility of resale a product, particularly in case of service item. For example, you go to the doctor and you take a healthcare service. Okay, doctor gives you a prescription, but it is not possible for you to resell that service. In that case, the doctor can charge higher from a patient and lower for the same service he can charge lower. Okay, it is and that doctor is considered to be specialist because he has the monopoly power to sell that service. So that can happen there. Ignorance of the consumer. For example, a seller sells huge amount of quantity per day, but in the North Calcutta it charges 5 paisa less. In South Calcutta it charges 5 paisa higher. But we are friends, so over telephone, you may tell me, sir, you are paying 5 paisa higher than me, but I am ignorant. I just I ignore it. So because of that ignorance, the seller can earn huge amount of profit. So this is one possibility that why a discriminating monopoly can charge different prices in different parts of the market. And typical behavior of the consumer. Sometimes the consumer's behavior can give an advantage to the seller to charge different prices. For example, the consumer may be suffering from what we call as Veblen's effect. Thorstein Veblen, okay, you know Veblen effect, those who have already studied the demand function. Veblen effect suggests that the consumers normally, they consider the price of a commodity as the quality of the commodity. The price of the commodity as the quality of the commodity. Now, higher the price, higher the quality. Okay, so if they will be ready to pay higher price because they consider higher price means higher quality and lower price means lower quality. Now the profit maximizing condition, very important. Okay, these conditions you must keep in your mind, that for a price discriminating monopolist, okay, the conditions are the marginal revenue from market 1 must be equal to marginal revenue from market 2, and that must be equal to marginal cost. This is the first condition. Mind it, this is the first condition. There is a second condition. Second condition means sufficient condition. Sufficient condition suggests that rate of change of marginal cost, okay, of the monopoly firm must be higher than that of MR1 and MR2. So those conditions are to be fulfilled. So your multiple choice type questions will be under third degree price discrimination. Profit maximizing conditions or profit maximizing condition will be option number 1. MR1 equals to MR2 equals to MC. Option number 2. Rate of change of MC will be more than rate of change of MR and rate of change of MR2. MR1 and MR2. Option number C. Both A and B. So the correct option will be both A and B. So you must be very much aware and be careful in giving answer. Now this is the diagram which you can draw. Normally there is no scope of drawing the diagrams, but I have suggested the undergraduate board of studies because I am a member there. So I have suggested them that please give some diagrams also so that they will have to give answer, because students have already forgotten because of this particular type of their learning process where they are giving multiple choice type only. So they have forgotten how to draw. They will lost that capacity of explaining the diagram. So you must know also a bit of the diagrams Here, please see, these two markets are there. In one market, the demand curve is flatter. The other market demand curve is steeper. So in the flatter demand curve indicates, please see, this is also linear, but it indicates relatively elastic demand. And the steeper demand curve indicates relatively inelastic demand. And you see that given the marginal cost schedule, we have assumed that a horizontal constant marginal cost. In market one, it is charging higher because the elasticity is inelastic. But in market two, okay, it is charging lower price. In this way, you can, with the help of the diagram also, you can understand how under third degree price discrimination, the monopolist can charge different prices. Now, under monopoly, there exists no supply curve. Why? Because under monopoly, because of this discrimination, the monopolist can charge different prices in two different markets, okay, for supplying same quantity. Here I have drawn the diagram in such a way that I have shown that the monopolist can supply same quantity but charge differently. So there is no one-to-one correspondence between the price and quantity. Because when you think of supply curves, what does it mean? The supply curve shows positive relation between price and quantity. But here you will not get it. In both, here what you find? Same price, they're supplying different quantities. So there is no one-to-one relationship, no positive relation between price and quantity, hence no supply curve. Now, comparison between price and output under monopoly and perfect competition market, I have already explained it. Now coming to the monopolistic competition, another important area, okay. Monopolistic competition means a combination of monopoly and competition. Both competitive feature and monopoly feature will be there in case of monopolistic competition. That means when there are huge number of firms, okay, there each of them say having a market power, okay, each of them having a market power, and they sell substitute commodities, which we call them differentiated commodities. This product differentiation is very important feature of monopolistic competition. But what do you mean by product differentiation? Product differentiation means that products are not altogether different, but through proper advertisement, okay, you create an impression upon the minds of the consumers that the consumers believe that the products are different. For example, say Pepsodent toothpaste and Colgate toothpaste. There may not be any real difference, okay, but they give advertisement in such a way that you feel that Pepsodent is better than Colgate or Colgate is better than Pepsodent. Okay, so this is called product differentiation. Under different brand names, they sell the product. Now, because of this, there will be two demand curves under monopolistic competition. One is called perceived demand curve, okay? Planned demand curve. The other is actual market share demand curve. The perceived demand curve is flatter. The actual market demand curve is steeper. Why? Because when they feel that by reducing the price they can sell more, this is the planned sales curve. But there are so many firms here. Monopolistic competition means there are large number of monopolists, okay, in the market. There is free entry, free exit, just like perfect competition. Okay, all of them are monopoly. They're selling in different brand names. Okay, so when you reduce the price, you expect that you can sell more, with the expectation that your rival firms will not react. There may be 1,000 firms, so you are only reducing the price. You can expect that 999 firms, they will not react. But in fact, they will react. If they react, then your actual sales will be less than your planned sale. So this actual sales curve, actual demand curve, actual market share demand curve will be steeper. This is the reason why perceived demand and actual market share demand curve. This is a very important part of your multiple choice type question. Now, this is the short-run equilibrium. Now, regarding the condition for short-run equilibrium under monopoly and monopolistic competition, there is only one difference. Almost same. MC and MR equal. Rate of change of MC must be greater than rate of change of MR. Only this third condition is added here. That means perceived sales must be equal to the actual market share demand curve. Okay. So perceived demand and actual market share demand must be equal. This is the third condition, which is very, very important under monopolistic competition. Okay. So please see that equilibrium output is Q0, price is P0, average cost C0, profit is given. But at equilibrium price, please see at point F, your actual market share demand curve and perceived demand curve, they have a intersection point. That means at price P0, your planned sale and actual market share, they are equal. This condition has to be satisfied. Now the long run. In the long run, as you give free entry, free exit. So through competition, there are two types of one type of competition here that is called price competition. Okay, there may be non-price competition also. when one firm competes with another firm through advertisement, that is called non-price competition. Without reducing the price, they are competing each other. But price competition means by reducing the price. So when they are involved in the price competition, it may so happen that the perceived demand curve will shift downward, and ultimately the long-run equilibrium will be attained at point F, where you have a point of tangency with the perceived demand curve and the long-run average cost curve. Your equilibrium point is E, where your marginal cost and marginal revenue, perceived marginal revenue, they have a intersection point. Equilibrium output is out this Q naught, P is P naught. Please see, in the monopolistic competition also, long-run equilibrium, price and average cost, they are equal. So there is no excess profit under long-run equilibrium. This is the similarity between monopolistic competition and perfect competition. In the long run, they have no excess profit. But there is only one difference. What is that difference? Under long-run equilibrium of a monopolistic competition, a firm cannot attain that level of output where average cost will be minimum. That is, optimal size of the firm cannot be attained here. So it is called as equilibrium with excess capacity. That means productive capacity of the firm is not fully utilized. Okay, equilibrium with excess capacity. This is the notion. So your multiple choice type question will be equilibrium with excess capacity is found under, correct answer will be under long-run equilibrium in a monopolistic competition. Long-run equilibrium and monopolistic competition. You will find long-run equilibrium under monopolistic competition only. You will find equilibrium with excess capacity. I have given the conditions here. Now coming to oligopoly market. Now oligopoly means a few firms with say very large financial power, financial strength. They have a few firms. They are competing with each other. But the problem here is that every firm has a strategy, but it cannot have any idea regarding the counter strategy to be taken by the rival firms. They have an interdependence, but they do not have any idea regarding what type of reaction will be taken by the rival firm. So if you do not have any idea regarding what type of reaction, what type of retaliation by your say rival firm, then what will happen? For example, you are thinking that at a particular price you can sell this amount, but you cannot. Why? Because when you fix that price to sell any particular amount, your rival firm may say selling the similar type of product, okay, in the market may reduce the price. So your sales plan will not be fulfilled. So you do not know at each price what amount you can sell. So if you cannot determine that at each price what amount you can sell, which was possible under monopolistic competition, where you can determine the perceived demand curve. But here you cannot even determine the perceived demand curve because you know nothing. You do not have any idea regarding what strategy will be taken by your rival firm. So if you cannot determine your demand function, your average revenue function, then theoretically you cannot also determine the marginal revenue function corresponding, because you know, say from total revenue you can determine average revenue from say this total revenue by differentiating you can calculate the marginal revenue. So if you do not have that average revenue, this schedule, demand schedule, then you cannot have also your marginal revenue schedule. So your marginal revenue schedule is absent. If your marginal revenue schedule is not there, even if you have marginal cost schedule known, you cannot determine the equilibrium output. Why? Because you determine your equilibrium level of output through intersection between revenue and cost. So you do not have marginal revenue. So without marginal revenue, you cannot determine equilibrium price. So this is called as problem of indeterminacy in the oligopoly market. So to settle down, to overcome this problem, different economists, they have suggested different models. So you'll find some models here for solving this problem. Okay, for example, Sweezy model is in the syllabus of BCom. In economics honors, you will find several other models. For example, Kudno model is there, Steckelberg model is there, Barton model is there. There are so many models, but here I shall discuss within the syllabus only the model you have in your syllabus. So I shall discuss the Sweezy's model. Paul Sweezy, an American economist, okay, he explained a solution. He gave a solution for this problem in the oligopoly market, and he gave its solution through some assumption. What is that assumption? He assumed that when any particular firm in this market, please listen very carefully, when any firm in this market wants to raise the price above the current level, okay, then he believes that other farms, the rival farms, will not follow his this strategy. That means whenever he wants to raise the price above the current level, then he has the perception that all other farms will not follow him. If all the farms doesn't follow the suit, then what will happen? If it increases the price by 10%, then demand will fall by more than 10%. Demand will be more elastic because no other farm is raising the price. So people will leave your farm, and they will be attracted to other farm. Similarly, they assume that if you reduce the price from the current level, you have a perception that all other rival farms will also reduce the price. So what will happen? All of them are reducing the price. So when you reduce your price by 10%, your sale will rise, but it will rise by 2% only. So you are facing inelastic demand, relatively inelastic demand below this current price level. So you can draw your diagram in this way. So if you assume the current price P0, then you assume that if you raise the price, okay, then other farms will not raise it. So you face a elastic type of demand curve above the price line. So your demand schedule is relatively elastic, DE. Below the price, you assume that all the farms will reduce, and the demand is to some extent inelastic. So you have a kink. You have a kink point at point E. Please observe. So demand curve is not straight line, downward sloping straight line. It has a kink. It has kink at point E. Now, if the demand curve has a kink at point E, then the corresponding marginal revenue curve must have a discontinuous phase, okay, discontinuity, okay. Why? Because for DE portion, you draw this marginal revenue curve. For this portion, you draw this DA. But this ED1, this demand curve, it has started somewhere else. It has started from, say, intercept higher than D. If you just extend this vertical axis, and then you can easily find it out that beyond Q0 level, corresponding to ED1, the marginal revenue curve will be beyond B. So what we'll observe, if you practice in your own copy, then you will find that there will be definitely a gap between a discontinuous phase in the marginal revenue schedule. And it is believed that the marginal cost schedule of the farm will pass through that discontinuity, discontinuous series. Okay, then the equilibrium quantity will not change. So even if there is a change in the marginal cost schedule, then the quantity will not change. Okay, so this is all about the Paul-Sweezy model. Now there is a collusive oligopoly model where a cartel is in your syllabus, and the syllabus says that you must have only the concept. Now there are two types of oligopoly. One is non-collusive oligopoly, the other is collusive oligopoly. Non-collusive oligopoly means there is because in this market there is strong say competition between the markets, between the farms, between the rival farms. So if they observe a policy of price war, say one farm reduces the price, so by retaliation other farm also reduces the price, then what will happen? Ultimately everyone will suffer. So to reduce that bad impact of the price competition, they may have a collusion. Okay, they may have an understanding, memorandum of understanding. They may have an understanding to jointly control the market. For example, OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is an example of cartel. So the rival farms may form a cartel. Cartel means an organization where different oligopolists, okay, they form an organization where they will try to control the market just like a monopoly firm, okay, because they want to avoid their own, say, this rivalry. So to avoid the rivalry, to have more benefit, they create an environment of collusion. That means better understanding, better memorandum of understanding through collusion. So collusive oligopoly is sometimes it is observed, but its success of collusive oligopoly depends upon their trust. If there is a breach of trust, then collusive oligopoly cannot sustain. Okay, so that is the main point in case of collusive oligopoly, and how cartel can solve the problem, and how that will sustain. Okay, now I come to the other part of your syllabus, and that is the factor market. Now from the product market, I just come to the factor market. The factor market normally deals with the pricing of the factor. Okay, here we consider the demand for the factor and the supply of the factor. Okay, and the demand for the factor is called the derived demand, because in the factor market there is no direct demand for the factor. You cannot consume any machine directly. If in the market, for example, the machine helps you to produce some product, and if in the market the demand for the product rises, then only the demand for the machine will rise. So demand for the machine is derived from the products produced by it. So hence the demand for a factor is called as the derived demand. Okay. Now first is the marginal productivity theory of distribution. How you can determine the price of a factor. The classical theory is marginal productivity theory of distribution. There are some assumptions. The basic assumption is that perfect competition prevails in both product and factor market. All factors are homogeneous. Okay, all the factors are perfectly divisible. Each factor is paid according to the marginal productivity, and when all factors are paid according to the marginal productivity, then your total output is just exhausted. These are some of the basic assumptions of marginal productivity theory of distribution. Okay, you must read very carefully all these assumptions. Now these terminologies are very important because your multiple choice type questions, sometimes it is asked from this terminology. For example, what is MPP? MPP is nothing but marginal physical productivity, change in total product due to the change in additional employment of any factor. For example, in the labor market, if you employ one additional labor, what is the change in the total output of the firm? That is called marginal physical productivity of labor. What is value of marginal productivity? If you multiply that marginal physical productivity by the product price in the market, you get value of marginal productivity. Okay. For example, if marginal physical productivity is 10 units, and if the price is also 10 rupees per unit, then your value of marginal physical productivity will be 100 rupees. Marginal revenue product, MRP. This is not maximum retail price. In economics, factor market is marginal revenue product, MRP. MRP is marginal physical product multiplied by marginal revenue. So under perfect competition in the product market, your price and marginal revenue will be equal. So your VNP and MRP will be equal. Very important multiple choice type question. Your question will be, under perfectly competitive market, the relation between VMP and MRP will be, they will give you so many options. VMP greater than MRP, VMP less than MRP, VMP equal to MRP. The actual answer will be VMP and MRP will be equal under perfect competition in the product market. Then come to another concept, VAP, value of average product. The average product of some factor multiplied by the product price, you get the value of average product. Then average factor cost, total factor cost divided by total factor employment. For example, in the labor market, average wage rate multiplied by the labor, so that is total labor cost divided by labor employment, and what you get the wage rate. So what is average factor cost? Average factor cost is nothing but the average factor price. Then marginal factor cost. Marginal factor cost is change in total factor cost due to change in employment. This small d means change. Now change in total factor cost is W into L, and if W is constant, then the result is W. So marginal factor cost will be equal to the average factor cost or the factor price when we assume that the factor price is fixed. So if the factor price is fixed, then marginal factor cost and average factor cost will be equal. This is another important multiple choice type question. When factor price is fixed, then MFC and AFC will be equal. But when the factor price is not fixed under imperfectly competitive factor market, then your marginal factor cost will be more than average factor cost. Okay, so that will be the result. Now profit maximizing condition. Under marginal productivity theory of distribution, a firm will employ that level of factor when marginal factor cost and marginal revenue product must be equal, and rate of change of marginal factor cost must be more than rate of change of marginal revenue. The same thing, just like product market. In the product market, MC equals to MR. Here it is MFC equals to MRP. In product market, it is rate of change of MC must be more than rate of change of MR. Here rate of change of marginal factor cost must be more than rate of change of MRP. Okay. So this is the diagram. So if there is perfect competition in the product market, as I have told, VMP and MRP will be equal. And you know that when you consider the marginal productivity curve, it is inverted U shape that you have already studied in your production chapter. average product, marginal product, all of them are inverted U. So VMP and MPP, also this curve is inverted U. And if you consider factor market, perfect competition in the factor market, then for any particular firm, the wage rate is determined in the market. So wage rate is fixed for any firm. So at a fixed wage rate, it can employ any, say, labor in the labor market, for example. Then if wage rate is fixed, then AFC and MFC will be equal. That we have shown that. Just I have shown that what is the relation between MFC and MFC. When W is fixed, then MFC and AFC will equal. So when AFC and MFC equal, then it will be a horizontal line. Now, according to the profit maximizing level of factor employment, what is the condition? At profit maximizing level, your MRP, this curve, and your MFC, this curve, must intersect. So you have 2 points, E and F. So now the question is whether you should employ L0 or L1. Now the second order condition has to be fulfilled. Second order condition says that if your rate of change of MFC is more than rate of change of MRP, okay. So when you observe that if you employ more, then your MFC is more than MRP. But here, if you observe that if you employ more than L0, you see your marginal revenue product is more than marginal factor cost. Your revenue is more than cost, so you'll employ more laborer. But if you go beyond L1, then what you observe, your marginal factor cost is more than marginal revenue product. Okay, so you stop here. So your equilibrium labor employment will be at L1. Now you can also show that whether there will be profit or loss, etc. Now how can you show that? You can show it with the help of that concept. Here I have already shown you now VAP, value of average product. This concept will be required. The value of average product, this curve you can draw. It is just like the average productivity curve. And you know that when you draw the average productivity curve, your marginal productivity curve will cut the average productivity at the highest point. Now, if you employ, now your equilibrium employment is L0. Your average productivity is this, value of average productivity. Now, if you multiply value of average productivity by L, then what will be the result? Value of average productivity is average product into price. What is average product? Q by L, output by labor, average product, multiplied by P. Q by L into P. Again, you are multiplying by L. So Q by L into P into L. So L will cancel out. You have P into Q. So you have total revenue. So value of average product multiplied by labor, you have the total revenue. And you are paying this wage rate per labor. So that is the wage cost. So this cost is more than revenue. So this is loss. Now here, the revenue is more than the cost. Revenue is more than the cost. So there will be a profit. There will be a profit, but here there is no profit, no loss. Okay. So I stop here for a moment. Okay, for a reason, and I will resume within just a second. Thank you for waiting for a few minutes. Now, one important criticism that I want to show you, that under marginal productivity theory of distribution, it was assumed that when each factor is paid according to their marginal product, according to this theory, then total product is just exhausted. Okay, but here this assumption will be true only if there is constant return to the variable factor. Please see. What is constant return? Constant return means when you increase your factor, your output also increases by same percentage. For example, when you increase your labor from 1 to 2, double, your output is also doubled. When you employ your labor triple, your output also tripled. This is called constant return. So please see, when you employ 4 laborers and each of them you pay according to the marginal product, what is your total product? 40. How much you pay each of them? 10. 10 into 4, 40. So your assumption is true here. That means each of them is paid according to the marginal product, then total product will be just exhausted. But if you consider decreasing return or increasing return to the variable factor, then that will not be hold good. Okay, that will not be true. Here you will find that in case of decreasing return, if you pay each labor according to the marginal product, then you pay 20 units, but your total product is 30. But in case of increasing return, if you pay each of them according to marginal product, for example, 4 laborers, 4 into 18, then 72 will be more than 59. So they will not match. Okay. Now, derivation of the demand curve from the labor market. This is one very important concept. Your the demand for labor can be derived from your value of marginal product or MRP curve, okay, downward sloping portion. For example, I have already told you that what is the equilibrium condition? When you have a cut point between the AFC and MFC, the schedule, which is horizontal because wage is fixed, and the downward sloping VMP equals to MRP schedule, you have an equilibrium labor employment of L1, or say when it is W0, you have L0. But if you now reduce the wage rate from W0 to W1, then what you observe? Your equilibrium point shifts from E to F, and you have more equilibrium labor employment. If you further reduce the wage rate, your equilibrium labor employment rises. That means wage rate can be considered as the price of labor. So here, as the price of labor declines, demand for labor increases. So the downward sloping portion of the VMP equals to MRP curve under perfect completion in the product market can be considered as the demand curve for labor. So this is very, very important. Okay. Now the individual supply curve. These are all in your syllabus. Now the individual labor supply curve is backward bending. This is very interesting. Normally the market supply curve is upward sloping, but the individual labor supply curve is backward bending. Why? Because consider the individual labor hours. In a particular day, for example, there are only 24 hours in a day. So as you increase the wage rate, first they will say from a very low level, for example, that worker is very poor. So if you give him more wage rate per hour, he will work for more hours. So why he is working for more hours? Because at that phase, there will be a substitution effect. That is, worker substitutes labor for leisure. Because any worker is a human being, okay, is not a machine. He derives utility from both income as well as leisure. So from where his income comes from? From his labor power. So when his wage rate rises from a very low level, then to earn more, he substitutes his leisure hour to labor for leisure. Okay, labor for leisure. But after a stage, when there is subsequent increase in the wage rate, there will be an income effect. Why income effect? Because the laborer now feels that he is wealthier than before. He earns up to his satisfaction, and then even if you give him more, he will there will be an income effect, and he will work for lesser hours. Hence, the individual labor supply curve will be backward bending. Here I have given one example. Please see this example. I have given wage rate per hour and how many hours in a day he is working. For example, 40 rupees per hour, 6 hours, his income is 240. But in his mind, he is very poor now. Now in his mind, that if I earn 600 rupees per day, then I will be satisfied. Gradually, if the wage rate per hour rises, please see, he is working for more hours. But after 70 rupees per hour, what is his total income per day? 630. It is already more than 600. Now, if the company, if that firm gives him hourly wage rate higher, up to 80 rupees per hour, he maybe reduce his working hour, because even by working for 8 hours at 80 rupees per hour, he is earning more than before. So this is why income effect will be much more powerful at higher level of income, higher level of wage rate, and substitution effect will be powerful at lower level of wage rate. So this is very important in explaining the backward bending supply curve, individual supply curve. Now, coming to imperfectly competitive market, factor market. Now, in the monopsony market, in the imperfect competition means monopsony. If there is single seller in the product market, we call it monopoly. But in the factor market, if there is single seller, single buyer, we call it monopsony market. Under monopsony market, the single buyer faces the market factor supply curve. So the average factor cost curve, okay, this is the supply curve of labor. What is average factor cost? That is the wage rate. If and the labor supply is supposed to be positive. If you give more wage, supply of labor in the aggregate will be higher. So average factor cost curve is upward sloping. And the relation between MFC and AFC I have already shown under imperfectly competitive market. MFC will be higher than AFC. So both of these schedule will be upward sloping, and MFC, marginal factor cost, will be more than average factor cost. And this average factor cost line is nothing but the aggregate labor supply curve. So a monopsonist, a single buyer, if there is a single buyer in the factor market, you can take an example. For example, in India, so many companies they produce so spare parts required for fighter jet plane. The only buyer is Indian Air Force, that is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. They purchase those spare parts. Okay, so only one buyer. So in the factor market, if there is only one buyer and many sellers, we call it monopsony market. Okay, so this type of monopsony market will be say indicated by this type of MFC and AFC schedules. Now, if you now consider a perfect competition in the product market but monopsony in the factor market, then you can show how this type of situation can lead to a collective bargaining. Okay, collective bargaining between the workers and the producers. Now, please see that if there is perfect competition in the product market, that is the farm which is a monopsony power in the factor market, it has to sell the product in the perfectly competitive market. Okay, now the equilibrium point is E, equilibrium factor employment is L, and wage payment is according to AFC, so wage payment is W0. Now, please see that this L0 labor, this at the margin, it is creating a value of marginal product EL0, but it is getting the wage rate from the producer much lower. This is called monopsonistic exploitation. So what is monopsonistic exploitation? That means the monopsonist exploits the laborer by giving them lower wage rate, but the value generated by the laborers are more. Marginal revenue product or the value of marginal product is more than the wage payment. So that is called the monopsonistic exploitation. Now, when the laborers, the workers are aware of this exploitation, they are now organized in a trade union and they claim for a higher wage hike, a higher wage rate. So there is a bargaining. It starts a collective bargaining between the producer and the trade union. Because the producers, they will decline this type of claim at first. So there will be tussle will continue, the problem will continue. Then through intermediation between the government as a third party, we call it tripartite. For example, in the banking sector, you will find tripartite solution. But what does it mean? Tripartite means three party. One party is workers, other party is management, the third party is the government. So through this settlement, there may be a settled wage rate may be settled at W1. So ultimately, they may be ready, the producers may be ready to give higher wage rate, and wage rate is fixed at W1. Please see, when W is fixed at W1, then average factor cost and marginal factor cost will be equal. We know that according to the theory, when the wage rate is fixed, when the price of the factor is fixed, then it is equal to average factor cost, which is equal to marginal factor cost. So the new equilibrium point will be H. Okay, so the employment will increase. So both employment and wage rate can be increased through trade union pressure. This is called collective bargaining. So you must remember every point to give correct answer. Now there is another point in your syllabus, that the conditions for successful, the success of the trade union. When the trade unions will be successful in this tussle. In this collective bargaining process, trade unions' success depends first on elasticity of demand for the good. For example, when they claim for higher wages, for example, you are the farm, you have to raise the wage. But if you raise the wage, your cost of production will rise. If your cost of production rises, then you have to raise the product price. If you raise the product price, and if the demand is elastic, you raise the product price by 10%, your demand will fall by 15%. Then you will avoid raising the price. You will avoid raising the wage rate. Then the success rate will be less. But if the demand is inelastic, then you can easily raise the price. Because if you raise the price by 10%, your demand will fall by 2% only. In that case, trade union movement will be successful. Similarly, elasticity of factor substitution. For example, when the workers are demanding for higher wages, and you can easily substitute a machine for human labor, then they will not be successful. You can implant one machine, but if they are very skilled, they cannot be substituted by machine, then they will be successful. If there is inflationary pressure in the market, then you can easily raise the price and the trade union will be successful. And if after their demand is fulfilled, if the wage bill as a proportion of the total cost very small, then in that case also they will be successful. And elasticity of supply of labor, if the supply of labor is very elastic, okay, then they will not be successful. If the supply of labor is inelastic, okay, there are very few in supply, then they will be successful. In this way, you must remember all these points, because all these points will come in your multiple choice type question. Now come to the rent. The famous Ricardian rent theory. You are already acquainted with this theory since your higher secondary level, but I'm just telling you the outline. There are two views of Ricardo. David Ricardo's idea. David Ricardo believed that land only earns the rent, okay, as factor payment, because land has the original and indestructible capacity, okay, and there is a scarcity rent. Scarcity rent means if you can use, okay, the land up to a point where marginal revenue product is zero, because land is abundant. If you feel that land is abundant and land can be used up to a point where marginal revenue product from land is zero, then there will be no rent, because rent is equal to price is equal to MRP. So if MRP is zero, price is zero, marginal revenue product is zero. But if the land is scarce, you cannot use land up to that point. You have to use your land up to L0, where you have a positive MRP and you have to pay a positive rent. So positive rent is paid. Why? Because of scarcity of land. This is number one view, and this is called rent is a differential surplus. This is another Ricardian concept. Ricardo believed that rent is earned by best quality land or intermediate land, but the worst quality land does not earn any rent. This can be, I have shown it or explained it. This is there in the book with the help of this diagram. You consider a competitive market, okay? The price is given, P naught, of that particular product. Say this is crop Q, and there are three, say, marginal cost curve for the three types of land. Okay, but how do you understand that this is best quality? The best quality land will give you lowest average variable cost. Okay, and the intermediate cost. Okay, it will be intermediate medium quality land means a bit higher, but this worst quality land will be the highest average variable cost. So the land which is of better quality, please see, they earn more surplus. Because they earn surplus, they will have a rent. So rent arises because of a differential surplus. So the worst quality land earns no rent. Hence, the famous dictum of Ricardo is that rent is not price determining. Rent is not price determining. Rather, crop price determines the rent. Ricardo believes that rent does not determine the price. Why? Because in the worst quality, price is at least equal to the average variable cost of production in the worst quality land. Okay, and there is no rent. So since this price is determined by the average cost of production in the worst quality land, where there is no rent, so rent does not determine the price. However, if you raise the crop price, if you increase this price level, then this worst quality of land will also earn some rent. So crop price determines rent, but rent does not determine price. This is the famous dictum of Ricardian theory, which was subsequently challenged by the modern theory. Now I come to the modern theory of rent. According to the modern theory, what is the rent? Rent will arise for all the factors according to modern theory. Land, labor, capital, organization, everybody will earn rent. What is the different definition? present income of the factor minus the alternative income of the factor. Present income minus alternative income, that is the opportunity cost. If any factor has different alternative uses, then it will engage itself in the best possible say sector. So the present income, the highest possible income, minus the next highest income. For example, you get a job in sector 1, sector 2, sector 3. In sector 1, per month salary is 80,000 rupees. In sector 2, it is 60,000 rupees. So the next possible. So your rent will be 20,000. 80,000 minus 60,000. That is called the rent. It will arise for each. For example, if your interest income from fixed deposit of a bank is say 8% per annum, and if from stock market your return is 10% per annum, then if you engage your capital there and say under say particular security which is much more secured, safe, then that 2% will be your rent, even in case of interest income in this way. Now here, please see, if you consider the supply of land from the viewpoint of the whole community, from the viewpoint of the whole society, the supply of land is fixed. So if you consider an inelastic supply curve, okay, then the land, according to Ricardo, has no alternative use except for cultivation. So no opportunity cost. If you consider land has no alternative use except for cultivation, in that case, opportunity cost will be zero. Alternative income of the factor will be zero. So the present income will be rent. So present income will be equal to rent when opportunity cost is zero. This may happen when you consider perfectly inelastic supply of land from the viewpoint of the whole society. This is very important. Now, again, if you consider a perfectly competitive market of the factor where the factor supply is perfectly elastic, please see, now the supply is perfectly elastic. For example, in a labor market, so labor supply may be perfectly elastic. Now, in that case, what will happen? The present income, because it is perfect, a perfect market, perfectly competitive market, factor market means your factor price is constant for every farm. It is, the wage rate will be same in Mumbai as well as in Kolkata, in Chennai, in Delhi, all over India. For a particular group of say laborers, they will get the same wage rate. So present income and alternative income will be same. In that case, rent will be zero. So your answer will be under, if the supply curve of the factor is perfectly elastic, okay, then the rent will be zero under model. So this will keep, you must keep in your mind to give proper answer. If you do not read, you cannot give proper answer. There is another concept of quasi rent, which was popularized by Marshall. Marshall believed that there is a particular type of rent which exists only during short run. In the long run, there is no rent. Okay, why? Because during short run, some factors are in short supply. They will ask for higher price. Hence, they will earn extra. But in the long run, for example, in your locality, you are the only mechanic who can repair a particular complex computer. For example, you have that knowledge, and you earn, you charge whatever you like. For example, your supply is inelastic during short run. But in the long run, what will happen? Several other people, they will find that Mr. X is earning more, so we must also learn. We must also have that skill. So in the long run, the supply of more and more computer mechanic will be increasing in your locality, and your earning will be falling. So Marshall believed that in the long run, there will be no rent. Okay, that is called quasi rent. Here I have shown with the help of this diagram, because this diagram shows a competitive market where the price is fixed P naught. Okay, and this is the marginal cost and marginal revenue. So equilibrium output is Q naught. Okay, and the average cost is at point F. So this is profit, excess profit, P naught C1 FE, and the difference between average cost and average variable cost is the average fixed cost. So the total fixed cost is C1 C naught GF. Okay, and average variable cost into output, that is the total variable cost, is O C naught GQ naught. So there are three parts. So total revenue has three parts. One is profit, one is fixed cost, the other is variable cost. Now, Marshall believes that if you, this variable cost means for variable factor, your payment for variable factor. If you do not pay them, they will leave you. They will go to other sector. So you must pay them. You must pay them that minimum. So what is your quasi rent? Your quasi rent is that extra. That means the fixed cost plus profit. So during short run, the fixed cost plus profit is called as the quasi rent. This you must keep in your mind. But in the long run, there is no fixed cost. There is no extra profit. In the long run, price is P1, where price on all factors are variable. So you have only variable cost, no fixed cost, no extra profit. So there is no quasi rent in the long run. That I have written. Then profit. This is the profit part. Easy. Gross profit and net profit. What is net profit? If you deduct opportunity cost of your own labor, your own capital that you have put in your business, then you can calculate the net profit. If you deduct your opportunity cost of giving your own labor, then you calculate the net profit. Normal profit and supernormal profit. Normal profit is included in the total cost of production. Say total cost means cost of labor, cost of interest, cost of land, then cost of entrepreneurship. Cost means charges, labor power, wages, interest, rent, and minimum expected return by the entrepreneur. That is called normal profit. Okay, so within the cost, the normal profit is included. Anything extra is called supernormal. Accounting profit and economic profit. From the say bookkeeping sense, the accounting sense, profit means the explicit, say sales revenue minus all explicit costs that you can measure. But economic profit is different. If you deduct from sales revenue all explicit as well as implicit costs, that is the opportunity cost, which are very difficult to calculate, then you get the economic profit. Now, different theories are there for profit evaluation of profit. For example, Joseph Schumpeter has innovation theory, Schumpeterian theory. He believes that entrepreneurs earn profit because of their innovative capacity. And there is another profit, theory, risk and uncertainty theories are there. Professor Hawley, he believes that since entrepreneurs, they undertake risk, for example, replacement risks are there, obsolescence risks are there. There are different types of risks in the market. Since they undertake risks, so they must have some return. The profit is the return from that reward for that taking risk. And what is the basic difference between risk and uncertainty? In case of risk, you can estimate the probability of happening or not happening any particular incident. Okay, but in case of uncertainty, you cannot attach any probability. Okay, you cannot estimate the probable say probability of any particular event. And Frank Knight believes that since the entrepreneur also take different types of uncertainty, also face different types of uncertainties. Okay, for example, several risks according to Frank Knight, the entrepreneurs, they can avoid this risk through insurance. For example, risk of fire, you can avoid it by purchasing say fire insurance. The risk of burglary, you can avoid that risk by purchasing burglary insurance. But no insurance company will be ready to undertake a risk in the demand fluctuation in the global market that you face. That is uncertainty. Okay, you do not know what will happen. So since you undertake that uncertainty, you must have some profit. So these are the theories. Now coming to the interest rate, that is the last part of the lecture. Interest rate is the price of use of capital. When you use the service of capital, you have to pay interest. And the net interest is gross interest minus you are taking the risk. You have that administrative cost. Hence, you will earn some net interest. Okay, and there are different interest rates. If risk element is higher, then rate of interest will be higher. And if expenditure associated with the loan arrangement, loan administration is higher, then interest rate will be higher. If the banks give lending for long periods, sometimes the rate of interest is higher. If you take consumption loan as opposed to productive loan, interest rate charge will be higher. In this way, you will find differences in the interest rate. And there is also the marginal productivity theory of interest. As you observe the marginal productivity theory of distribution, in case of labor market, you can determine wage rate. Similarly, in the capital market, you can also determine equilibrium rate of interest on the basis of marginal productivity theory. Where you consider the marginal productivity of capital, value of marginal product equal to marginal revenue product. Here also you assume perfect competition in the product market and factor market, and you can determine the same way as we explained before. Now, classical theory of interest indicates is the last part, where the supply at equilibrium rate of interest, the supply of capital and the demand for capital, they must be equal. The supply of capital comes from the savings, where it is assumed that savings is a function of rate of interest, and demand for capital arises because of investment, which is also a function of interest rate, and at equilibrium, will be equal, and equilibrium interest rate will be determined. In this way, you have to keep in your mind all these theories. Okay, so I stop here. I stop sharing my screen, and if you have any question, you can ask. Thank you for giving me the scope to give this lecture.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very nice, lucid, and very detailed explanation. And each and every chapter you have separately taken and discussed in a very intensive manner. So, thank you, sir, for your explanation. Our students definitely will be benefited from that. So, may I now request Professor Prithviraj Shaha to conduct the next question answer session? Thank you.
Thank you, Niloida. I'll take this opportunity to first of all thank Professor Mojumdar once again for this engaging lecture session, and I believe that all of us have had an enriching experience, and particularly the students, okay, for whom this lecture series was organized, okay. So now, with your kind permission, sir, I would like to open the forum up for a few questions, as you said, okay. So students, I would request you to type your questions or any points if you have on the chat box of the Google Meet portal or in the live chat comment section in the YouTube link. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it forward in front of us. Okay, because it's a rare opportunity which you're getting to interact with Professor Mojumdar. Okay. So yeah, I would really encourage you to come up with your questions if you have any. So students, if you may please, if you have any questions, please type it down in the chat box or in the live comment section. I guess so we can just wait for 2 to 3 minutes, okay, so that they can type the questions.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Uh, Sir, I guess we have a question from our student Anamika. She's asking that when would the monopoly power of a firm decline? If I can place her question right, when would the monopoly power of a firm decline? If you can
Actually,
please
monopoly
refer.
power. Let me answer. The monopoly power is measured by the Lerner's index, as I have told. It is the distance between the price and marginal cost. Okay, divided by the as a proportion of price. Normally, it will decline when the elasticity. If you just follow my lecture, I have shown in my lecture that monopoly power actually ultimately it is determined by the price elasticity of demand in the market. So more and more elastic the demand, the less will be the monopoly power, and less and less the elasticity, more will be the monopoly power. This is the answer. It will decline only when the elasticity, price elasticity of demand, is more elastic.
Thank you, sir. I hope, Anamika, you have received your answer. If there are any more questions, please feel free to put it forward.
I think I have given.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I
Sorry.
have a beautiful lecture so that they do not have any questions. There are two implications.
Uh,
Number one,
yes.
one is
Exactly.
either
I
they
guess
have.
the lecture was self-explanatory, just like your textbooks, because I remember many of us had been introduced to economics by your textbooks, and I remember my class 11, 12 days when those
Yes.
textbooks were really self-explanatory. So I guess the lecture has quite been such.
So
Uh,
what I can do, I shall send this whole document to the HOD, okay, in the email so that he can distribute, okay, along with
Definitely,
some.
sure,
sir.
sure,
Definitely.
sure,
Th-
Okay,
sure.
okay,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so one last minute call for the questions, if there are any. Uh, there's one more question, sir. The formation of cartel by a few rival firms would imply a collusive oligopoly. Is this statement true? You can
yes,
just have,
yes,
yeah.
it is true. Yes, it is true. But because some of the few rival farms means they are the oligopolists, okay, and they have formed a cartel, and cartel is the only form one of the forms of this collusive oligopoly form. This statement is true. Okay, they have formed a cartel means it is true. It is collusive. It is a sign of collusive oligopoly. Anamika, is your this idea clear? Okay, okay.
Okay, thank you, Anamika. And I guess we don't have any more questions here, sir. And as you have said, you'll be sending your lecture note here to the HOD. So I guess with your permission, can I end this question and answer session here, sir? Since I don't think we have any more questions, so I'll just pass it on to Niloida then. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind references. Niloida, if you may
Yes,
please take it
yes.
forward.
Thank you, Prithviraj, for your for conducting this session, and thank you once again to all of you. And I would like to request Professor Saptarshi Chakraborty to deliver vote of thanks to this vote of thanks.
Thanks, Professor Gupta. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are perfectly audible.
Okay, thank you, Nilada. Honorable dignitaries and most valuable guests, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Department of Economics of THK Jain College. I, Professor Saptarshi Chakraborty, extend my deep gratitude to the reputed speaker, Dr. Devashish Mazumdar, and I thank Dr. Mazumdar for sparing his precious time for us and gracing this lecture session with his presence, kept enlightened with this valuable analysis. I also forward my mark of respect to our President of SS Jain Sabha, Sri Sardar Mal Kankaria, President of Governing Body, Sri Sohan Raj Singhvi, and Secretary of Governing Body, Sri Lalit Kankaria of this college for giving us the opportunity to conduct this lecture session. I would also like to express my thankfulness to our dynamic principal madam, Dr. Mousumi Singh Sengupta, for her constant support and motivation to organize this kind of lecture session. I also give my gratitude to Professor Vinay Kumar Shaw of Department of Commerce, Professor Soumotanu Adhikari of Department of Business Administration, Professor Deepayan Datta of Department of English for their auspicious technical support which make this program successful. I also grateful to in charge of Department of Commerce, Dr. Ashit Kumar Mondol, and all the faculty members of Department of Economics and all the other departments for their honorable presence. I also express my thanks to all the support staffs and the office staffs of this college. And at the end, Department of Economics of THK Jain College want to express heartiest thanks to all the students from different departments of this college. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So should I leave now, na?
Yes, sir, you may.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, can we also leave the class?
Yes, the students may leave now. And feedback link I have given in the chat box. Please fill it up before leaving the platform. Please fill up the feedback link.